Yes, indeedy, folks. It's the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. It's time to drive the John Day River. Last week we drove from Dayville up to Kimberly on Highway 19. At Kimberly, the middle fork of the John Day River joined the John Day River and the river turned to the west. We will today take it from Kimberly over through Spray, Service Creek, then we'll cross the river, come down Highway 207 across the 3,600-foot summit and down into Mitchell. Here we are at Kimberly with the John Day River heading to the west through the canyon. No, folks, this is not Spray. Spray was a house on the side of the road that we passed maybe 3 miles back, and this is part of the irrigated valley just to the west of Spray. And here we are looking back on that beautiful valley. Not too far from this truck, I noticed a guy who I doubt ever complains about the view from his office. After 25 miles from Kimberly, we enter Service Creek, which is a little larger than one house, but not much. And then we head toward the south. We cross the John Day River as it heads off to the west. This is looking west, and we head on up over the pass. These first few photos are from when we first leave the river, start heading up a small canyon that starts gaining altitude very quickly. These first two photos were taken right around the corner from that bend that we just saw in the road. I saw this spectacular mountain and a little bit of a waterfall just to the north, and then just to the east was a typical sign about what this road is all about. Just around the corner from that bend that was just saw on the sign, I stopped and saw the road up above me here. You can see it up in the hillside. We're going to be driving up there, and the next photo is from where that cut in the road was, looking back. Very spectacular drive. And as we head around the bend, yes, folks, it's time for Car Cam! Car Cam! Car Cam! Very sophisticated. Remember, kids, don't try this at home. Car Cam! I think I'm going to have to remind that guy to clean the lens on his car next time we use the car cam. After coming over a little hill, we come into this beautiful long valley here. I am a sucker for barns, and this one made me stop right in the middle of the valley and take a picture. And as we reached the end of that little valley and started to head toward the summit, I stopped at one spot and took this little panorama, looking first from the east and going over around toward the north and toward the northwest. Just over the summit, the road takes us on a gentle slope through some very pastoral country. Gets very serious about dropping down about 700 or 800 feet down to Mitchell on Highway 26. Welcome to adventuring where the Knose knows. The Knose knows. where our beer drinking guide assures us for sure. I can't spell it, but I can smell it. Today's nosy adventure is brought to you by Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. Yes, Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. We have the answer to your every odoriferous need. I'm sure you know the situation, folks. Oh yes, things are going well. You finally get your house fixed up. The sun is shining. What a lovely existence you finally created for yourself. And then, one day, there's a difference. What is that? You just can't put your finger on it. Things just aren't right. And then you trace it down. It's coming from that door. Gee, you never noticed it was locked before. The only door in the house that is locked. The one with the sign, "Keep out. This means you." And suddenly you realize that sweet boy of yours has turned into a teenager. No, how did this happen? Oh. And that change to your beautiful house? Oh yes, you realize it's a teenager and he won't be cleaning his socks. That's when it hits you. That's when you know why your guests have been looking odd lately. Why they seem to quit talking when you come into the room. Why even your mom has stopped visiting so often. But what can you do? You can't farm them out. So you just learn to live with it and figure, well, everybody else will get used to it too. You just talk yourself into getting used to that, and your neighbor buys a new SUV, insists on taking off anything that reduces the smell of it, and starts roaring by your house. The Acme Fat Rendering Company decides to open up a rendering plant / power plant right next to your house. It'll be good for the environment, folks. And just when you get used to all that, just when you've gotten to where you take it as normal, along comes Uncle Phil. Uncle Phil, who always seems to do a number 2 as soon as he arrives. Oh, we don't even want to think of going there. Let's face it, folks. Life stinks. Life stinks, and you're caught right in the middle of it. Sure, you try a spray. You try a heavy-duty spray. But you know that's like trying to cover your problems with a daffodil. Folks, you need to get proactive. The only way to deal with this is to get proactive. You need Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. Yes, indeedy, folks. You get one of our little rascals, and you won't have trouble with all those other things you're smelling. You won't notice them one little bit. You won't notice them, and neither will any of your friends. In the meantime, you can rest assured old Stinky Feet won't be bringing by any of his girlfriends when you're not around, and he'll be out of the house by the time he's 20. Andre's Skunk-U-Porium, the answer to the everyday stink of life. And when you visit Andre's Skunk-U-Porium, you get a bonus. Yes, folks, you can get rid of your cat and your dog, 'cause you'll already have a precious being to feed and pick up after. Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. There's no need for a guarantee. We're conveniently located right next to the Idaho legislature, so while you're shopping, you know the product works even before you buy. Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. And now, here's your beer drinking guide with today's nosy adventure. It's springtime in the Rockies. On my walk home this evening, I noticed once again that beautiful smell of the earth coming up. Even though it's quite late at night, it's still in the 40s. You're starting to enjoy that wonderful aroma, that wonderful gift of scent. The one of 5 senses that we have for appreciating this great mystery, this great wahoo. I opened up the door to my house. Well, it turns out that a little while ago was St. Patrick's Day. I love corned beef and cabbage. I must admit that goes back to when I was a kid and I used to go to my grandma's house on Sunday mornings. We were going to church and we'd stop by grandma's house and I'd read the paper and there'd be these wonderful warm smells in the house. And one of the features in the Sunday paper was Jigs and Maggie. Maggie was an immigrant from, I guess it was probably Ireland. She was very sophisticated and working on being a lady. And Jigs, of course, was the guy who wore spats and wore all kinds of stuff that you do because you're a guy who has to go to work. In the meantime, he loved corned beef and cabbage, and Maggie just hated that he liked peasant food. Well, I was raised around Swedes. I had no idea what corned beef and cabbage was. We got lutefisk, for gosh sakes. We actually were never forced, but once a year during the right season, they'd cook up some and have great fun about who was going to eat it and who wasn't. And they never forced it on we kids. I will say that for them. So to this day, I don't know if I've ever eaten any of that cod that's been sitting around in lye or whatever they do to it. It might actually be pretty good. I don't know. In the meantime, I was captured by the concept of corned beef and cabbage. Well, thanks to the fact that St. Patrick's Day is a great tradition, I have had more than one occasion to eat corned beef and cabbage. And this year, I decided instead of spending $10 having a corned beef and cabbage dinner, and corned beef and cabbage are supposed to be the poor man's food, I decided I'd just go buy some corned beef and some cabbage. Well, it cost about $8. I got plenty of corned beef to fill me up, and I got 2 heads of cabbage. Turns out 1 head of cabbage would have been plenty. I ended up with an extra head of cabbage. I did go buy more corned beef, that's true, but that's a different story. One thing that I did do was I got out my cookbook and what do you do with cabbage? I was thinking about cabbage stews. So many people have survived on cabbage stews, and so many of them are so delicious. I think particularly of hot borschts and things like that I've run across in my life. So I thought, well, why shouldn't I be able to cook these things? I ran across a recipe for stuffed corned beef, stuffed corned beef with stuffed cabbage. So I went and bought the ingredients. It really didn't take much. A can of tomatoes, some ground beef, and an onion. Everything else I had in the house, some salt, pepper, vinegar, So this afternoon I read the directions and learned about how you make it so that you can peel large leaves of cabbage off. That was kind of fun, actually, pouring the boiling water over them. It was fun. Maybe I'll have to make a cooking part of the segment as much as travel is. We'll see. It was fun. And I mixed up what the ingredients were, and I thought, oh, this won't be enough beef to stuff 8 cabbage leaves. But actually, it was just right. It's surprising how these people who figure out recipes know what the heck they're doing. So I put it in a pot and I cooked it up. And I had one, and I thought, could use a bit more vinegar. And I think a touch of sour cream would top it off. But other than that, it was a great beginning recipe. It's something that we start from and then go exploring. So I go out and enjoy quaffing a few brews. I walk home in this beautiful, crisp, yet warm, not so crisp that you can't smell things. Not that summertime heat, but still that springtime in the Rockies, that promise of the warm. Walking home in that and breathing in these scents. And I open the door and I walk into a house full of the smell of boiled cabbage and beef and onions and tomatoes. We only have 5 ways to celebrate the Great Wahoo. And our smell is certainly one to just stop and turn everything else off and celebrate how magic it is. The Knose Knows, a special presentation from the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Brought to you by Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. And now, with this week's special, here's Aunt Minnie. Now, girls, you know how it is. These rascals are just like husbands. They get around you and they forget what they're there for. Pretty soon they get comfortable and husbands start stinking and these little rascals stop stinking. That's why we're having this week's special on the Skunk-U-Prod. Yes, indeedy, girls. One little poke with this electric wand, and that skunk will be right back to where you won't even notice that Uncle Phil has been living in your house for a week. The Skunk-U-Prod, on sale now at Andre's Skunk-U-Porium. No need for a guarantee. The trees on Harrison Boulevard were blooming this spring. One of my favorite drives this time of the year, so I got out the car cam and went for a little spin up the street. So, what is the number one way to drive a man crazy? Marry him! And that's another beer drinker's guide to the Great Wahoo. Thanks for joining me. I'm looking forward to having you back next week. In the meantime, keep celebrating the Great Wahoo.